You have these interesting longer term monetization opportunities, which is how can you actually incubate different physical product brands, software brands.
Right.
How can you actually build content series that evolve into becoming full-fledged media properties, or take interesting YouTube creators and help them incubate and launch shows on streaming platforms? What is happening, Jordan? How are we feeling today?
I'm good, man. And for anybody watching this YouTube video or Spotify video, Sam got himself a little fresh cut. So looks like you're doing good too, my guy.
That's right. We thriving. And we are excited to dive into this week's episode of the Business of Talent podcast, where we deconstruct how shifts across media, talent, and entertainment are redefining how businesses are built and scaled. Today, we're doing a deep dive into a handful of curated news topics that very much caught our attention. So without any further ado, we'll jump into the first one. Many of you, some of you, are familiar with Cam Newton, ex-NFL player. About a week ago, he made a big announcement. If you're already familiar too, he actually does have his own podcast, 4th and 1, which has definitely become a very popular podcast. Sits within his content and media company brand, Iconic Saga Productions. This past week, he announced that he's launching a creator studio in Atlanta to fuel authentic and independent storytelling. He really wants this to help continue evolving the Iconic Saga Productions brand and media network as one of the kind of front-running companies on a mission to elevate Black voices and authentic storytelling outside of the traditional media system. Kind of launching the studio is not only a new studio for his show, but also a studio to help put on other creators. So according to a company press announcement, he really envisions this space as a platform for underrepresented creators with a focus on media equity, IP ownership, and culturally driven content. I think it's also interesting as when you think about creators and markets, key geographies for creators, brain typically goes to LA and NYC. So I think this is also really interesting in cementing Atlanta and their rising status as a creator economy hub. I think there's a lot of different interesting themes to unpack here, but I'd be curious from your perspective, Jordan, why this is exciting to you. What do you think this means not only for like athletes that want to build their own media networks, but why this is so impactful for aspiring and underrepresented creators in a market like Atlanta?
Yeah, well, first of all, Atlanta is a big part of the creator economy, just not in the way that we've thought about previously. I mean, we know about the rap industry there. They've spawned some of like my favorite rappers. I even had, some of these rappers at my playing during my wedding. The very, very important part of my history as somebody who's worked in hip hop. So first of all, there is a creator economy, just maybe not in the way that Cam Newton is envisioning it. Secondly, underrepresented voices, I think, come from underrepresented areas. And as far as like specifically the creator economy goes, whether we're talking about influencers or even media personalities, I do think Atlanta is underrepresented in some respects. So it'll be really interesting to see what type of promotion they can get through Cam Newton and what type of support they can get through Cam Newton. One thing that I'm really, really interested about, and not to critique Cam Newton super aggressively or anything, but I'm wondering what Cam Newton necessarily knows about the creator economy for him to think that he can help a lot with this, and what his partners are on this. I know he has a podcast himself. It's really popular himself. I've seen him on several different TV shows and things like that. But one thing that I'm like super interested in moving forward is how the creator economy isn't just representative of creatives, but actual business people, and turning these things into business properties. So I'm wondering if Cam Newton, when he starts this, is not just focused on helping people be creative, but actually help them turn into thriving businesses with actual intellectual property. I think that's what will make a really big difference between this and just like a podcast studio or just like a creative studio, if that makes sense. Like actually having people invest in the creators that come through in some sort of way to make it out the studio, so to speak.
Yeah, no, I think you raised some phenomenal points. And I mean, it is interesting to think around how he'll support creators. And at the end of the day, only time will tell truly. But it does seem like a big step forward, even outside of, I'll kind of revisit the point around helping them build genuine IP and ownership and brands that go beyond just supporting them across content creation. But at a foundational level, it does provide a lot of value to creators that want to get their own shows off the ground. If you do want to reach that next level of your show or your content, having some level of professional appearance and branding, having a great studio with a great production team, an IRL space to film content is a big value add. So I think off jump, just being able to provide that as a resource to different creators can be very valuable. I think the next step beyond that, though, is even more interesting, where it's like, okay, sure, you have a space, you have base level like production resources. How are you continuing to help these different creators grow their shows, grow their brands, create IP that can become valuable? I think we are seeing and have seen this with his own show, right? I think it's been great to see the success and traction he's built with Fourth and One. To the extent that he's able to actually find creators he really wants to put on. Maybe there's some sort of like JV mechanic where he's getting some level of equity, giving them free access to these different spaces and resources. That's what I was wondering, if this like
turns into like an agency or some sort of thing. Like this is a move into a creative agency, because I'm sure he's going to find people that he wants to collaborate with as he goes through this. You know, I'm sure he's going to find people that he wants to support with more than just space and more than just education. I'm sure he's going to want to sign them to something. That's a natural next step from this. I mean, that's how a lot of record labels started. It's like, yo, come to the studio. I'll record you. Oh, wait, I'm your manager. Oh, wait, I'm your label representative, and now let's start a label. That's how Def Jam started in Weinstein, you know? People would come in there recording with Russell Simmons and Rick Rubin. So that feels like a natural next step to this to me.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's probably very top of mind for him as he's thinking about this, because at the end of the day, it's like, if he does want to really start building out a proper network and take ownership and help incubate and align incentives around long-term growth on different creator IP that he's partnering with different creators to build, it's like, this is one of the biggest hard costs of production, right? Having access to a space and production environment. So now that's kind of vertical integration there. I think it'll be interesting to see how he like staffs up and evolves it over time. I also think too, it's like you look at, there's a network like Playmaker that partners with different retired or active athletes to launch their shows. Right. They have shows like the OGs with Mike Miller and Udonis Haslam and Shaq's podcast, and long list of different content series where they actually partner with different professional athletes to launch shows, help grow it. I mean, you even see a very interesting comp here too, is like off the back of a lot of Charlemagne's success in radio, partnered with iHeart to launch the Black Effect podcast network. Shows like Drink Champs, All the Smoke. These are all shows that kind of beyond his properties sit within this network. I mean, with iHeart, it's interesting, and that is a very interesting like comp to what a record label imprint looks like by way of iHeart already having so many advertiser relationships. Now Charlemagne gets to sit in this interesting position as like an A&R of sorts, where he's able to bring in and help incubate and strategically cast and launch shows.
Right.
But I mean, we're seeing more and more podcast networks come up. I think it's, even if we look at our last business talent podcast episode, when we talk about one of the biggest risks of talent-led brands, it's like that key man risk, right? Like Cam can only go so far in scaling his own podcast. So now what's the next step? Builds upon the distribution he's created with his own show to now start launching other series with other talent, so he can continue to grow the value of that brand overall. So I think that's probably very aligned with like where his head's at long term, and I'm definitely excited to see this take shape, especially through the lens of like underrepresented creators and helping them foster more media equity and IP ownership. So very excited to see this progress and develop, and I think this is a very smart move.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we spoke about this before on another podcast, how a business can't be fully run by the creator. They have to have other creators to sort of spread their business to and to spread their influence to. So sort of like we were telling the future there, actually. Next, Fixated raises $13 million to expand creator monetization and talent rep infrastructure. And for those who don't know, Fixated is a 360 creator management company, and it secured $13 million in funding, with $10 million led by Eldridge Industries and $2.8 million from unnamed investors. The round grants Eldridge a vast minority stake and marks a strategic expansion into the creator economy. It was funded in 2023. Fixated was by Zach Katz, who previously helped run FaZe Clan and BMG, and Jason Wilhelm, who worked for Talent X and Studio 71. It already has 33 employees and is based in LA. For those who don't know, they represent creators like Zach Justice, Botez Sisters, and Sophie Dossi. In terms of what this means for the creator economy, what were some of your first takeaways for hearing this news, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a handful of interesting angles. One, do love the whole like 360-degree talent management firm, where they're going beyond just being this like agent that helps secure brand deals. Yes, that's a critical part, but being able to offer like full stack support across creative, strategy, monetization, growth, monetization too. I mean, you have kind of like the short term opportunity of monetization, which is like run up the brand deals. Then you have these interesting longer term monetization opportunities, which is how can you actually incubate different physical product brands, software brands.
Right.
How can you actually build content series that evolve into becoming full-fledged media properties, or take interesting YouTube creators and help them incubate and launch shows on streaming platforms, right? So I think that side's interesting. It's also really interesting when you look at a company like Eldridge. It's this big capital management, like private equity firm. I mean, they now have investments in like A24, which has definitely been disrupting and shaking up a lot of the film industry. Variety, interesting kind of more traditional media entity within this kind of entertainment sector, and even like South by Southwest, right? Such a prominent kind of like in-person brand and community for all things creators, tech, film, entertainment. So it looks like Eldridge is playing their cards very well when it comes to taking these kind of diversified bets into the future of the creator economy. So I'm excited. And I mean, it too seems like this is a really interesting, like team that, like having worked at FaZe Clan, one of their kind of co-founders at Cats. I mean, FaZe has had an interesting journey, but no matter how you look at it, I think they built one of the most prominent gaming communities online, and kind of rode that wave of like when that was very niche into what it's become now is one of the biggest kind of like internet content creation sectors that only continues to grow. So yeah, I'm personally really excited about this, and I think it's also just fun too because I feel like there's always just been so much hesitance around investors investing into like service businesses, like management companies, like marketing agencies. Now, as we're seeing this evolution where you're seeing management companies that aren't just servicing and living or dying off commissions, but are really focused now on like co-creating new IP and ownership. I think that is more attractive to investors. I think that better aligns incentives for management companies, such that you don't spend 10 years building a talent such that they break off, and once they break off they fire you and now you have nothing to show. And then I also think it aligns the incentives even for the talent too, because now it's like you want these forward thinking managers and companies that are able to think about your brand in a more holistic way around this kind of next frontier of what monetization and growth looks like beyond just like building your distribution to get more brand deals or more just like one-off projects. So I think this to me is very exciting. I think we're seeing the shift across more management companies, and I think this is just another kind of investment that really helps validate the kind of future and where we see that future headed.
Yeah,
What stands out to you?
I think this model in general, this 360 model with creators specifically. I mean, I know we've talked about it in musician as talked about it when it was musicians on the music business podcast, but I think with creators in general, it allows them to actually be partners and grow something together and like grow IP together. I've never really been a huge fan of things being so separate. People do different things because then stuff like falls through the cracks. But when you have a company like Fixated that can really become a thought partner for you and actually help you expand IP in several different areas, it comes out in the work. That being said, when you do that, you have to like really be careful who you're partnering with. But obviously, Fixated's doing it really well, and I think we'll see more companies do this in the future. There's so much when it comes to talent management. There's content strategy. There's monetization strategy. Now they're starting to become booking strategies. People are booking live shows as podcasts in venues now. So to really have a thought partner to think about all of that with, I think will be more and more. We'll see it more and more in the industry, and I'm looking forward to it actually.
Yeah, for sure. 1000%. No, very excited about this. Well, as we keep rocking, we'll jump into our next one. And this is some interesting news, an interesting story here, but India commits 1 billion to its creator economy. India is making a landmark move to supercharge its creator economy with a $1 billion investment announced at the 2025 Wave Summit in Mumbai by Union I&B Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw. My apologies, Ashwani. I hope I didn't butcher that too hard. The fund will help Indian creators upgrade their production, expand internationally, and utilize cutting edge technologies. YouTube is still definitely a very kind of dominant platform. TikTok is still banned over there, and Indian creators already lead global YouTube viewership, particularly on YouTube Shorts, where they've racked up over 1 trillion lifetime views. I think this initiative is really interesting as it comes amidst a booming domestic creator scene, which currently supports 4 million influencers. It's projected to hit over $400 million valuation by 2026. Major takeaways here. What kind of stands out to you, Jordan?
Yeah, so I think in this situation, you got to go where the puck is going. And I think the creator economy, it might not be there yet, but you have to think about how much it contributes to a country's GDP and general economic success, and you have to invest in it. I mean, we've seen that a lot happening right now. For example, with AI in the US, there's like this huge rounds of investment into artificial intelligence because it'll boost general productivity, which is a really good sign for countries. I think that it's a similar thing happening right now in India, where they realize that the creator economy is actually increasing the productivity and the outputs of their business or not the business, but the business of the country, and in deciding to invest more in that so they get more output from it. I think it's a very clear and obvious thing to do. I mean, one thing that we've seen also in the US is last year, for the first time, Joe Biden invited a bunch of creators from the creator economy to the White House, you know. So I think the next thing is investment directly into the creator economy from the government in the US. And I think India is doing it first because it's just been really, really successful. I think more successful in a lot of respects than people expected. So I think it makes sense for the government to say, how can we help this and how can we support this? I mean, this is one of the biggest investments from a government globally that we've ever seen in the creator economy. You know, creators have a lot of power, and I think this is reflected in this.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. I think so. This investment, and Ishwani is effectively like the second minister of the Electronics and Information Technology department within the kind of governmental body over there. So I think it's really interesting that the government is creating a program like this. They do very much see that as the media landscape shifts, this is the future of media, being able to really help ensure that they are well positioned within this massive growth sector is very smart. I think this will kind of reap rewards. And I think even if you just look at how just the way in which business incentives and government grants can spur growth within sectors that will drive impact is always great to see. So I think very excited to see how they continue to grow their global influence. It's amazing the amount of scale that's already operating within there. So very excited to see how this continues to be a catalyst for growth within this sector internationally, as well within kind of like GDP and potential domestically in India. So love it. Very curious to see what this, like how this sets a precedent for other countries that are also trying to play into where the puck is going when it comes to creating an environment that's most conducive for this growth sector within the larger economy. So hats off to them though, for sure. And I think this is definitely, I'm sure, very exciting for a lot of the local creators over there. Sweet. Well, we ran through some fun news. Really appreciate everybody always tuning in. Excited to come back next week. I think in next week's episode, we'll be doing a deep dive into Emma Chamberlain and how she's been able to really drive some interesting growth and lessons learned in her pursuits with her coffee brands. But until then, if you hit us up, like, subscribe, leave a comment, leave a review, ping us if there's any specific topics you'd like us to dive deeper into. Always appreciate your support and tuning in. Jordan, any closing thoughts?
No, man. Thank you all for listening, dude. And thanks, Sam, for talking to me once a week.
That's right. With pleasure. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Talk soon. Peace.